Okay, all right. Let me get this out to Twitter that I am live. Adding WebEx notifications to our PyATS failed tests. See you in YouTube for more live development. Tweet. Okay. Okay. All right. So we're going to do some. Let me just level set where we're at. So the idea here is that from the guest shell, and I'll go into guest shell in a second, we have a new Python app that we've pip installed into guest shell. And the idea here is that if I do show run eam, now this doesn't work. We've already established that I can't do this with this version and in the CML. But right, on certain syslog events, such as config write done, go ahead and capture and dump the state out to GitHub. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into guest shell, and we're going to let's just capture the current state of the device, right? So nx pydocs, and if I do -- help, it needs the command, and all is a valid command, or individual show commands. The file type, which could be all, and I'll do all files. The repository we want to send it to, the username, and the token from the Git repo. So let's go ahead and get the Git repo URL. And it's this pydocs output, and I've structured into folders now. And then, following up, I'll show you the next bit of discovery, or the next bit of code that we've built on here. So nx pydocs, all commands, all files, to that Git repo with my automate your network, and let me grab my latest token, and I will refresh this token at the end of the session so nobody can use it. And we're going to dump the current state, and this is up to 4 commands now: show version, show inventory, show IP interface brief, and show interface. Okay, and then if I go into my Git repo, and this is kind of neat, if we were running this, let's say, in an enterprise, as soon as that finishes, and it doesn't take that long. It seems like it's hanging here, but it's not hanging. It's actually running and parsing, and now you can see I've rewritten the data to the Git repo. Well, if I'm in VS Code here, and I do a quick git fetch, or if I just sit here and give it enough time, you can see very easily, visually, that there is updates to pull down. So we're going to pull down the latest commits. And now that I have this JSON in Git, what we followed up with is another piece of code, and it is where? Here. Now this piece of code is the PyATS tests. And let's quickly take a look at the code to level set. So I'm using GitHub from PyGitHub and PyATS, mainly AES test and the banner. And I'm also using Tabulate, and I'm using regex as well. So let's take a look. So the common setup class, first I just want the host name of the device. So I'm going to GitHub, G equals GitHub username token. The repository is under g.getUser getRepo and the repo name. And then I set up a hostname list array. I strip out, using regex, everything after the first space to isolate just the name of the device, which in this case is switch. So then, following up, I have get show interface. And this is where we've started with the tests. And I sort of do the same thing, but I'm getting get contents from the repo for JSON contents. And, for each item in that contents, decode the item. And if show interface is in the file name, register a variable show interface. And then everything else you see here, and I'm going to find an easy one for us to take a look at. Let's take a look at CRC errors, right? So I have all of these AE test.tests, and this one is for CRC counters. Now my threshold is set to 0. I don't want anything above 0 fail the test. Now this is customized PyATS tests because I'm not using the PyATS parsed JSON, which is its own structured JSON. I'm using the CLID JSON, and I'll show you what I mean by that. If I go into Python in the guest shell, I can say from CLI import star CLID show interface, and this is the JSON. It just looks like, you know, marbles here, but it's not PyATS structured JSON, it is CLID JSON. So what I'm doing is I'm going for int f, and let me just show you here, give you an anchor point with the doc. That's not the one. I've got a lot of files open here. Here. So you can see for show interface, I want to say for each item in this row interface array and iterate over it. And then it's just a matter of picking all of the things that we want to test against. Babbles, bad Ethernet, bad protocol, collisions, CRCs, deferred, dribble, duplex. And that's what I have. And I've come up with 24 different tests. So I say if ETH counter is in the interface, because it might be a SBI, it might be a loopback, it might be something that doesn't have CRCs on it. So if CRCs are present, set the counter equals ETH CRC. Now this is just, I don't want to say just, but this is building a table using tabulate. So I'm appending each of these things. And basically, this is the key here. If the integer of counter, right, this counter, the ETH CRC, is greater than my threshold, then make that a failed interface. So then I build my table, and if it's passed or failed, I add the headers to this table, and then I call this follow-up function, right? If name is none. Yes, it is, Stephen. Thanks for joining, Stephen, and I agree. This is pretty neat without, like, test bed free. The other thing I want you to think about, and I'd maybe try to evangelize or maybe get the word out, is that, well, what if this was a JSON payload from AWS, from Azure, from APIC, from DNA Center, from the Star Wars API, right? Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. We can use PyATS to test different keys, right? So then, right, if name is none, then it's skipped, right? Self.skipped, no interface CRC errors. If self.failed, then, right, this string that has the name of the interface, that it failed, and the threshold that it was tested against. So, right, so I have 24 tests, and what I'll do is I'll just run this tests, and we're going to say PyATS run job nx pytests job. Now, the other thing I'm going to do while I'm in here, and this is sort of what I want to build on tonight, and actually let me just do PyATS run job with a question mark. There are a lot of sub options here. And if you look closely, there is this WebEx capability where I could send an email, WebEx notification email, but I can do this, and I'm going to do this, add token and space, and send the summary, not the full tables right now, but the summary of the job. And I think a couple of these are going to fail. So nx pytest job -- WebEx space, I think it is. And I have, now let me show you how to get this, just in case you've never used WebEx. You're going to go to developer.webex.com. I'm already logged in. Go to documentation. Go into the messaging API, reference, messages, or even rooms. Let's do rooms, because what I need is the room I want to send it to and my token. So right from here in the WebEx, we can copy our token, which is 12 hours, and run it in here. And I've set up a little room called NXPyDocs. So I need this ID and my token. Now we can also do this just in case you don't want to use it in the browser. If you go to Postman, there is a WebEx Postman collection you can install into Postman, or you can set up your own requests. And let me get that WebEx open. WebEx, get rooms, right? So there's the URL, https webexapis.com v1/rooms. Let me paste in my new token, hit send, and there is the ID of the room that I want. So let's copy that, and let's close some of this out. And we're going to send that into the space, --WebEx token. And you can do this for any PyATS job you have. So if you are already running PyATS jobs and you haven't tied it into WebEx, I'll show you what we're going to get out of it. So I'm going to run this, and this is going to happen in about 3 seconds. Like, this is really, really, really fast, because we're using the Unicon framework, which is just normally fast. So it's like 3 seconds to run 24 tests against almost 70 interfaces. And this failed, right? So if I look here, switch 1, it actually failed because one of my interfaces state checked failed, which I've done on purpose. So let's take a look at the WebEx. Here is what we get in WebEx. We get the job result report. And you can see where I can get the archive of this. You can see that running the following command on this desktop, on my computer, I could run this logs view with the host and spawn the log viewer. But the important thing is that we have one failed test. So PyATS is WebEx sensitive. You just need to pass it in your space and your token, and you can get the results of your job in a room. Now, I think it would be neat if I could send an adaptive card into this room with the failed message. So that's what I'm going to be working on right now, tonight. And I'm not going to write that from scratch. I'm going to steal a bit of code from my ICE project, if I can find it here, Icicle. So first of all, I need the Jinja 2. So I'm going to just take this Jinja 2 template and bring it over, and we're going to rename it just adaptive, failed test adaptive card. How about that? And we'll rewrite this adaptive card in a second. We'll come back to the adaptive card and we'll explore that a little bit. Now we need to get the code. So I have this chatbot. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a couple of environment variables here at the top. WebEx room equals, and let me get the WebEx room again. And WebEx token. Now the WebEx token is only good for 12 hours. That will expire, so I'm not too worried about you seeing this token. It will expire at the end of this session kind of thing. So we have our room and our token as environment variables. And let's, which test was failing? The state test. So let's start writing the state test WebEx sensitivity. And what I'm going to do is, it's at the very bottom here. So what I'm going to do is, right, if it failed, right here, right, if self failed, write that line of code. Well, let's do this. Let's say if WebEx room, maybe I should say is not none, and we can make none the default here. I think this should work. That should mean it's not empty. So if WebEx room, then do some stuff. So I'm going to take some existing code here. And I'll talk over the code in a second. And I don't have environment, file system loader, or path. So I need to bring those libraries in. All right, because I'm not doing any Jinja 2 templating in here yet. So I need to take, let me just take those 2 lines of code and paste them in, and I don't need the rich line. So I need pathlib and I need Jinja 2. And I think pathlib needs to be installed. I think Jinja 2 comes with PyATS. We'll know in a second. If I have to pip install it, then I'll add it to the README. And let's go back to our WebEx code here just for a reference. So then, let's go back down and adjust that code to be, so get template is actually called failed test adaptive card. So get that template, and then we're going to use this dot render. So we're going to say adaptive card output equals, and then we're going to take that dot render, and then we need to pass in some data into the adaptive card. So I'm just going to take a look as reference here. Right, we're going to say room ID equals WebEx room. So we need the room ID for sure in our adaptive card. The other thing we need is the data, the payload of the data. So what we want to pass in, actually I'm not passing in any JSON payload here. What I'm passing in is the name and the self-failed interface's name. Actually, let me take a look at the, what does that state check name equals ETH. Let me just find out where exactly what that looks like. And let's get the right information into the adaptive card. Right, so failed reason, interface, not connected or is administratively down. Interface is not connected or administratively down. So I think I want this self-failed interface name. So we're going to pass that in as, let's say, failed interface equals self-failed interface name. And that's really all that we need, is the room ID and that interface, and then we can customize the message once we get into the adaptive card. So then we've got to follow this up and actually post it into WebEx. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to take 2 lines of code here and paste them in and say right. Oh, I have a typo over here. Okay, I'll come back and fix that typo later. So what we want to do is do a response, and I say WebEx adaptive card response, requests.post, the messages API, and what data do we want to send? Well, we want to send the adaptive card output with headers, a content type of application JSON, and the authorization is a bearer token, and it's not self.token, it's WebEx token. I'm not sure why that didn't highlight blue. I don't know why that's not highlighting as blue. There might be a problem with this, but that's an F string. It should take that. Well, I think that should still work. I'm not sure exactly why that's not highlighting as blue. And then I like to print the WebEx response status code due to so this will tell us if it's a successful pass or not. And again, I'm not sure why that is still saying it. I have used it here. Why is that? Let me just quickly take a look at my ICE code. Where did I close it? I did. I'm just not liking some of those the colors aren't lining up, and it's sort of telling me there's something wrong here. So, no, I guess it stays. Adaptive card output equals adaptive card template dot. Render. That should be render, not rander. I spelt that wrong. And then adaptive card output. Did I not close off? I know why. I didn't close off the bracket there. Okay, you see? So always use the colors. Always use the colors. Now that's the nice blue. That's the nice blue. WebEx token is not white. I had missed a closing. Yes, thank you, Neil. Hey, Neil, thanks for joining. It's good to see you. Typo and adaptive. Yep, and this is, so requests, and that is because I haven't imported the request library yet. So import requests, and let's go ahead and pip install requests. So let me add that to the README. Requests, and I think I also need to import pathlib. Let me just see here. Pip install pathlib. Already satisfied. So maybe I don't need to. I'm pretty sure that needs to be pip installed. Anyway. So let's save this. And now I think this is going to work. But we're not quite done. We need to work with the adaptive card Jinja template now. Now, before you freak out about the adaptive card, let me show you how I did this. Because I don't want you to look at it and think, wow, he came up with all that. I didn't come up with all that. Go to Buttons and Cards under developer.webex.com. Go to Try It, and it will bring you into this Buttons and Cards designer. And there is the example of an adaptive card. So what you can do is copy all of this, and that's all I did. I took all of this, I put it in a Jinja 2 template, and then I started mucking around and adjusting it to be what I wanted. So you can actually develop it here in this GUI, right? And make it look the way you want it to, right? Copy card payload, it's right there. Preview mode, new card, and they have a bunch of examples of other cards if you want to do one with images, if you want to do one with input texts. It's a really, a weather, really rich environment. The other thing is that this is a Microsoft format that they've made open. So if you do Microsoft Adaptive Cards, adaptivecards.io, right? Everything you'd ever want to know about adaptive cards. If the WebEx developer doesn't give you everything that you need, or if you want to look a little deeper, there's all kinds of information on the internet about adaptive cards. And I love them. I think they're great. So we're going to strip out the if and the else. And I'm going to try to make this a fairly generic how do I make this generic? That's part of the problem, is making it generic. So I might need to make a template per failed test, unless I completely make this agnostic, which is what I'm going to try to do. So maybe what I could do is, under that failed, to make it agnostic, like I have the interface. That's pretty good, actually. It's just the interface. Or I could register this self failed string and pass that in. Maybe I will do that, because under each of my failures I have a different string based on, right, this one has underruns. So maybe I will try that, is to say is to copy this string and register it here as the failed message equals that string, and then I can pass in the failed message. So I can have failed interface as just the interface, as a standalone interface, and then I could have failed message equals failed message. So now Jinja 2 has available to it the value of room ID, failed interface, and failed message. Just for consistency, let me get rid of those spaces. So now in our adaptive card, we need the room ID, and the markdown here is we're going to say, NXPyDocs has detected a failure on interface. Well, maybe I should just say has detected a failure, because I want this to be generic enough, because I'm going to have other tests like show version and stuff. Now, a lot of this you're not going to touch. You could give it your own icon, and whenever I come up with an icon or a logo for this project, let's see if we can find Simmings PyATS with the PyATS images. Is it out here somewhere? This one. So, open image in new tab. I don't know, just for fun. Let's see if how that's going to look as the logo. And I don't know if it takes JPEGs. We'll test it. We'll test it with that. So then what I have are columns, like a table, and this is just going to say NXPyDocs tests WebEx from NXPyDocs tests, and then another column, and here is where we're going to have, right, so this one just says active sessions. So what we can say is, and actually, you know what, let's make it for the interface. So let's rename this failed test show interface. How about that? Which means I need to go back here and update the name of the template. Failed test show interface. And then what we can actually do is has detected a failure on, and then we could have interface name. I believe that's what I called it. No, failed interface. So PyDex has detected failure on failed interface. WebEx from PyDocs due to a failure on failed interface. And then we can say failure, and then I think I have it as failed message. So let's put failed message in here. And, you know, this is just more text. This data comes from the show interface command, transformed into JSON and tested with PyATS. And then what we can do is have resources, and we can leave the link icon. I kind of like that. And then what we'll do here is say GitHub repository, and we know that it's NXPyDocs JSON, and we know it's from the show interface JSON. So let's take that and give the user a URL link to the JSON, and we can actually call this get repository raw JSON. And I think there's another HTML here, and I can have watch the development of this functionality on YouTube. And you're going to get a little bit of an echo here. Let me get the YouTube video for this live stream as an anchor point if anybody wants to and see how this was developed. And let's paste that in here. And let's give it a go. Actually, so now I have to strip out all of this other code because I have a bunch of adaptive cards in here. Looks good to me. Looks good to me so far. And I don't know. What do you think? Let's give it a spin. So we're going to run the exact same code. We should get one failed interface because I have an interface that is... Oh, hang on. I missed. Unmatched. Unmatched syntax error. Line 1266. I didn't close something. Oh, where did that come from? Whoops. Again, not perfect, still a human being. Let's try it. And actually, I want to have WebEx open. So here's my PyDocs room. Okay, I didn't get the adaptive card. So what did I get? Did I get a 404 or something? Did I get a 404? What did I get? What was my message here? I don't even see my... Should have been after the state check. Failed. Else failed. Did it not fire because my WebEx room? If WebEx room. The WebEx room should evaluate to true. I don't know what, so that's the only thing I can think of is that my if statement didn't evaluate to true, because I don't see my, let me get out, well, I can't get out of WebEx. Okay, where is this message? Because it should be shortly after that message. Right here is the message. So I should have like my, do I have to do, instead of print, maybe log info? Let's try that. Log.info and get that into the log. Maybe that will help. Yeah, it is. It's crazy fast. It is so much faster than actually waiting for PyETS to. So it's not. If WebEx room, maybe I should. Well, you know what? Let's just make it where you have to have a web. Make it. For now, let's just try it again without that if logic. Because I'm not getting an adaptive card, but I'm not getting a message either to have. Interesting. So it wasn't the if logic. So let's put that if logic back in. It's like it's not even hitting this, right? If self failed. And it's definitely failed because it is telling me here that it failed. You know what? Let's do something a little more Pythonic and add another aetest.test, define state check webx of self. This is better code anyway. Well, I know self.failed, it makes it that this failed test. It indicates that the test failed and that the state check was on name eth14. So where do I call in state check? Here. Self.stateCheck if there are failed interfaces. So then what we're going to do is call the same thing, aetest loop mark, and instead of self.stateCheck, we'll call in self.stateCheck webx. How's that? That's cleaner code anyway. Yeah, it might just, I agree with you, Neil. So what we're going to do is call the state check, and if there's failed interfaces, then go ahead and loop and mark the state webx. Let's try it that way. I'm just going to read this other message to get rid of my notifications. Okay, good. Okay, so that's, at least it's calling it now. Failed message, name is not declared because I'm not passing name in. Right, that's my mistake. Name equals none, else name. So it doesn't know name here. Let me name equals none. If name is none, break. Else if actually let's take this WebEx room up here. Yeah. So let's define it. If WebEx room is defined, then call that. That way if they're not, why doesn't it like break can only be used within a loop? Self.skipped. Yeah. Let's just take that self.skipped and do the same thing. I know it's a bit of redundancy, but let me just see if I can get this working. Okay. Let's try this again. And thanks for joining me, everybody. I really appreciate, if I'm going to do development, I figure I just turn on the stream. Okay, so WebEx passed. And did it print my... Right? Hey, check it out. The post to WebEx had a response of 200. Okay. And that's actually a test. So it actually passed that test because it's a 200 back. Now, did I get the WebEx? Ha! Okay, so now I get this wonderful card. Oh, I got to go get my phone. that has very clearly, as someone who is an operator, right? The PyETS logo, PyETS docs tests, WebEx from NXPy docs tests due to a failure on link not connected. Failure interface ETH14 link not connected. Okay, I'm going to have to adjust this message. It's too long for the column here. This data comes from the show interface command, transformed into JSON and tested with PyETS. And then I should be able to go right to the source data. There's the source data, in case you're questioning the fidelity of the message. And if I look for not connected, there it is. ETH14 is not connected. Right? And if I go back to the adaptive card, I could go and watch PyETS. We're going to have Inception here. Go right to the source. We can go to this YouTube video to see how this was developed. Okay. Pretty radical. That is pretty damn cool. And then, of course, I get the job result that has the single fail, right? There is a failed test and how to view the logs on the local host. Let me just try something. Let me just launch this code and just to show you what this is saying. So if you're the local operator, oh, hang on. How do I got to do that from the CLI here. Hang on, what am I doing? Paste it in here. No, I want to copy this. Copy text. Paste it in. Go to there. Yeah, it's not quite, that's not right. That's not accurate. Anyway, that's not my message. That's a PyETS built-in thing. Hey, David, thanks for joining. So now, really, honestly, all we have to do, so that WebEx message was too long. That was one thing we have to adjust. Failed message is not connected or administratively down. I wonder if I make this a multi-line string. I don't know. Again, I don't know that this was going to work. Let's see if that works. Why type it out when I can up arrow 100 times? Oh, and because I went into the Python command line, I've got to reactivate my virtual environment. Don't tell me I lost the code. I did. Okay, that's all right. I'll just type it in again. PyETS job run NXPy job -- WebEx room. And that is my room. -- WebEx token. And again, this is just the summary. Okay, so I've done two things here with WebEx. We can natively tie in the summary output into WebEx. I always do this. Sometimes my dyslexia kicks in. Dyslexic children send their Christmas cards to Satan. It's run job, not job run. Okay, so now, did the multi-line work? No, it did not. So we're just going to, hang on a second. That doesn't look right. I should have two adaptive cards. Well, WebEx there. $400, bad request. Aha, yeah, because my multi-line string here, okay, that's no good. Doesn't like that. So really what I could say is, and I think this name is redundant, to be honest with you. I don't think that's actually working, that name. We can say, Link not connected. Let's see if that's a little prettier. Should be. I've broken something. Oh, it doesn't get... Right. That's not inside of anything. That's just a raw string. And I'll show you how quick in real time the WebEx is. Let's watch the WebEx as the test runs. Bang. It's like it is essentially real time. And I didn't get my WebEx report, so maybe something was wrong with WebEx token. It's WebEx space, not room. That's my mistake again. That should be WebEx space, not room here. And let's see if we can press enter and go into the room. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 seconds. It's in WebEx. Pretty wicked, right? And the message is still bleeding over. I wonder if I can fix my column widths here to make these a little tighter, make this table a little better. Or I could change it to be this text here and not even have a table, right? We can play with the adaptive card to make that better. So if I come into the adaptive card, right, failure really only needs to be, let's say 15 characters, and let's make that 100 characters. Try that again. There we go. Interface link not connected. Link not connected. Oh. So I do need the name. Okay. That was here, and this had interface name, and then the reason why it failed. Is that right? I don't know. Let's take a look. And again, I'm into the nitty-gritty, finer details of the adaptive card here, but there we go. Interface, and it's pushed it over. Link not connected. Oh, I have redundancy here. I don't need to say link not connected twice because it's in the message. So I don't need that. One last spin, and then we'll add some more adaptive cards. And really all I'm going to do is copy this state WebEx test, and it should be universal. So let's try it with, and we'll start at the top. So I'm going to take, what do I need to take here? Where do I add it? I add it in a couple of places. So let's split the screen and go to our top test. Now there's 24 tests. I don't know that I need to bore you with all 24 tests. I can patch that in later now that I've got it working. I wanted to develop another test with you to show you how we can do testing. And it is a lot of copy and paste, but okay, so then if failed, I'm going to take that message. Oh, I pressed the wrong key there. So this is Babel. So we're going to paste that in. I just want to see how universal this is. So I'm going to paste that in, and then I'm going to take my test and put it under the Babel's check here. And I should add some comments here, and we're going to call this interface Babel's WebEx. And no interface babbles. And then I think everything else remains the same except for my, yeah, that's pretty much all that I need. I don't think I have to change anything else in this code. So now let's dummy up a Babel error and see how this plays out. So let me just pick an interface at random here. Babels, 5 babbles. Save that, commit that, dummy babbles. And let's try it again. Now, in theory, I should get 2 adaptive cards. I should get one for babbles, one for the interface state, and then the summary of the job. So if I look at babbles, okay, WebEx skipped. Why did WebEx skip babbles? I know why, because I didn't call it. Yeah, that's my mistake. I can't just blindly copy and paste. I have to actually invoke that new function. Let's do that again. Passed the babbles WebEx. And here we go. So yeah, 5. So really I should add the word babbles here. But it is universal. And instead test on 5, right? I should, right? This says test on link not connected. I should, I mean, that's not great, right? Test due to failure on 5. And then this just says 5. So that really isn't quite universal, but I can add some logic to the nice thing is it's Jinja 2, and we can add logic. So where was that first detected a failure on, and then the failed interface is actually the number. So we could add some logic here. But then I need to pass in the test type, which is easily done here in the Jinja, right? So we could say test equals babbles, and then at the bottom we're going to have test equals state. So then we could say if test equals babbles, failed because of blank babbles. I could do else if here and then add a bunch of end ifs. If test, and that should be equals state failed on not connected, end if. And then the other one was here, WebEx due to failure on, where was the WebEx? I didn't like it, just said 5. Here, 5. Now that is from the message, not from, so I need to go back into the Python and change the message here. Failed message. But is there anywhere indicating the actual interface? Yeah, so Ethernet 1/1 and then it should say Babbles blank Babbles. Okay, let's try that again. And I should get 2 adaptive cards with a little bit better context around them, and then the summary job. That's no, I put the Babbles in the wrong place. I was on the wrong template. But I still don't know why this message didn't catch it. It's not, this message didn't work. So something didn't quite work there. Or did I, John, you didn't save the template. That would help if you save the template. And this Babbles doesn't belong here. It belongs up here. Not the perfect developer, never claimed to be. Here, Babbles. Okay. All right, let's try it again. And drop me a hello. Let me know where you are in the world and what your interest is. If there's any questions that arise, if there's any ideas that come up. This is why I do it, is to solicit feedback and to show you the art of the possible. So no, it... my else if failed. Yeah, you see my WebEx message. No, it passed. And this one passed. So why did my WebEx only send one message in instead of the Babbles? So I've broken my WebEx. Test equals Babbles. Test equals Babbles. Interface Babbles. I'm not quite sure why I only got one. Did I get a 400 back? Oh, hey, Stephen, thanks for joining. I know it's late where you are, so thanks a lot. I really appreciate your support. Hey, Derek from Kenya. That's pretty cool. Someone from Kenya's tuned in. That is really cool. Stephen, take care. Reach out to me later and let me know if you have any questions or anything. Okay, so I can't quite see. I can't see if it posted a 400 or not because I don't have enough buffer in here. If test equals Babbles, then make it test Babbles. Else if, let me just make, but the else if worked. So I'm not quite sure. Hey David, thanks for joining from Tulsa. That's really cool. Yeah, feel free to reach out and let me know if you have any questions or want to watch the other streams. I'm not quite sure why my Babbles didn't send into WebEx. I assume I got a 400 back. me save both of these files and try this again. And actually, I'm going to try to cancel this to see if I can catch. It's the first test. It's so fast I can barely stop it in time to not overrun my buffer. Let me do it again and kill it even faster. Too quick. I should, so Neil, I should start to use breakpoints. You're right. I haven't really messed with breakpoints too much. So where's my Babel? $400. Yeah, I thought so. So something is wrong. If it equals Babels, then do the markdown. I don't like doing it this way, but let me just do an end if, else, no, not else, if test equals, all I did was add Babels here. Try it again with the if as its own if and if instead of else if. No, I have broken it. This is why I should check my code in after I have things working. All I did was add Babels there, I'm pretty sure. Let me undo some stuff. Okay, let me undo the template and just send it in and see if I can eliminate, is it the template or is it the Python? Okay, so it was my template, not the Python. I don't quite understand why though, right? I should be able to do that. I mean, the other thing I could do is, let's do it this way instead. If test equals state, and we're going to copy all this. Say, this might be cleaner anyway. Else, and if, else, if test equals Babels, failed, and technically, so this failed interface is actually the message. It's not, I have this backwards in my code. Failed interface, this is actually the test, not the failed interface. And technically I don't need the failed message. Well, I kind of like the failed message. So what we can have is interface equals name. interface equals name, and go back into our adaptive card, failed on interface. I'm going to change this to failure. Failure. And failure. So failure on interface. Failed message, that's fine. Okay, so then here I want to say failed on interface due to blank babbles. Failure on interface due to babbles. The failed message is fine. And let's try our code again. I'm still only getting one adaptive card, and now I'm only getting babbles. But this is better. Failed on ETH11 due to babbles. Ethernet 111.5 babbles. And we can maybe make that even better. So we have to fix this broken code for the two messages. But what we can do is on the failed mess in our table, we can just have babbles failure, like that. That's better. And then technically I guess I don't need this failed message. Because I have the interface and I have the failure already. So we don't need the failed message. We don't need the failed message. Okay, so let's try this again and see what the new card looks like. Babbles 5, better. Ethernet 1 due to babbles, babbles 5, and the links. Now let's see why my else if code is not working here. If test equals babbles. If test equals, I have a space. Haha, John. So then this one I'm going to say interface failure. So now I'll get two adaptive cards that are much better. There we go, there's two. So my babbles looks good, and then this has Ethernet. And let me adjust those spaces again. Ethernet 1 link not connected. 25 and 60. So then what I'm going to do next is add some version tests. I will patch in all of the WebEx messages for the 24. You know, that's kind of boring, or I could just keep doing that and make this whole session WebEx adaptive cards. There we go. That looks great. That looks great. So it's really going to be a repeat purpose of babbles, except it's going to be CRC errors and the other 22 messages. Now let's shift gears and add some more tests. So I've tested everything I could for interfaces, interface error counts. Now let's take a look at what we can test in the show version command. So we're going to look at our JSON for show version. And here is what we can test. Boot flash size, the kickstart version, the memory, and the NXOS version. We could test other things, but those are some good tests to start with. And what I was thinking was for, say, boot flash size, if there's a way to get what the total boot flash is and maybe do a percentage. So let me come out of guest shell here and do a dir. Perfect. Or is that total? Is that the total boot flash? It looks like it's the total, right? 4287040. Yeah. That's too bad it's not the actual size of boot flash. So I can't test boot flash size. Is memory the same thing? Show, what is it? Environment. No. Show platform. How do I find the memory with a show command? Maybe I can't test memory. Maybe that's the total memory available. Resource. Show resource. No. System. That's right. That's right. Show system resources. So maybe we can, let me see something real quick. Guest shell, Python, from CLI import star, CLID, show system resources. Does this work to JSON? It does. It does. So I'm going to need to add show system resources to our commands to get the data off the box into GitHub. But for now, let's take a look at, and I might even need to compare the two. Memory usage total, memory usage free, so that number is the total, not the used, unfortunately. But I thought show, let me also do this, CLID show boot flash. Just building up some ideas for more tests and more state documentation. So show boot flash is not a supported command. So I can't do disk space for boot flash. But we could do resources for show system resources. Okay. Okay, good to know. So let's go ahead and write some tests for show version since I have the show version to test against. And we could test against the Kickstart version and the NXOS version. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot of other things that we would want to test against in here. But we can do a version check, which is a pretty good test, to be honest with you. So what we're going to do is just take Babel. We're going to take our first Babel test here. And we're going to take the whole class. And we're going to test this first. So what we're going to do is call this class version check. And do our setup for this test. Now, instead of get show interfaces, we're going to need to do a different test up here. Right? So what we're going to do is copy this subsection. And let's put it above since we're running it first. And we're going to call this get show version. And then if show version is in the item name, register show version as the raw content, and let's return show version. So then in our test, we're going to call get show version self and the host name. And we're going to have this one called version. And let's set the threshold, right? So version threshold. And what is the current version? Let's make the test pass first, and then we'll make the test fail. So 938. And that's a string, not an integer. All right, so then really it's the same tests. And if an XOS version, and actually let's make this a different test. We're going to have this as NXOS version, and the NXOS version threshold is 938. And if NXOS version is in the, and this isn't for interface, and actually I don't even need to do a for loop here. I don't think, no, because it's just a single dictionary. So the test, so this is going to be a little bit structured a little bit differently. So instead of a for loop, we're going to have JSON version equals self dot, not interface info, but this is going to be version info. And then we're going to set the counter equals JSON version. I can go directly into it because there is no table or row. So I don't even need that. NXOS version string. And we'll just say version here. And then if the version is defined, we're going to get rid of the interface and just have versions. And then if version does not equal the threshold, fail the test. Self, and what we're going to do is call this failed version. And there really isn't an interface. So just version here equals version. We don't have that row, and we don't have interface here. I need to move all this back. Version pass failed. Okay, so then if self dot failed version, run the interface version check, and the name is not the failed interface keys. The name is going to be version, I think, here. And then we're going to call NXOS version WebEx. And hang on. And actually, let's call this failed NXOS version. Name equals version. Failed NXOS version. I've lost myself a little bit here, but because it's not a loop. So this is going to be let's take a look at my babbles. Sorry, I've gone silent here. I'm just trying to figure this out here. But I need to set my threshold there. And then skip this to say version matches golden version. Otherwise, we're going to need a new, so failed version adaptive card. Failed version adaptive card. And we can get rid of this state. Actually, what we can do is say if test equals NXOS. We'll come back to this other test. And what we're going to say is PyDect has detected a failure on failure. Well, let's take a look at what we're passing in here. So the adaptive card is going to have the interface name, which we don't need anymore. And then the failure. Let's just see test equals NXOS. Let's see what happens. Let's see how far we get with this new test. I'm assuming we might get some errors. I don't know that I've written that properly just yet. Right, so something failed if did I lose it? Let's run it again and kill it to see what that error message is. Something is not quite right yet. So my table looks good. Switch, the version passed failed. So I'm okay up to the table. What I'm getting wrong here is version check has no attribute. So on line 104. So I'm good up until the table. If failed NXOS version, which is here, if self failed NXOS version, then run the check. Object has no attribute failed NXOS version. So if self failed NXOS version, and I have that here, self failed NXOS version. Let me quickly take a look at my babbles. So where do I do this? Self interfaces. Oh, I think I just do this equals version. That's better. That's better. No, it still doesn't like it. If self failed NXOS version, but I have that here. Self failed NXOS version equals version. If version check has no attribute failed NXOS version. Has attribute self? Just trying to see what I've done differently. I know that this is a for loop, so it's a little bit different, the code, but here I'm saying if if it's a failure, append failed, and I'm getting past here for my table row, and then I say self failed interfaces, and then the iteration of the interface and the interface equals, and then that counter. So failed interfaces is like 5, right? For that interface. So I'm saying self failed NXOS version equals, and then that version number. Is it because I didn't have an else? Right, it shouldn't have this because I'm not failing it. I'm hitting row past. So it's not defined, right? So I should be actually hitting this else statement. Right. I do have an else though, else self past. Oh, I think I know, maybe, is it that, no, if self failed version, it should just skip over this and do self past. I should say version matches golden version. Failed version does not match the golden version. I can try that, Neil. I'm not opposed to trying it that way. I still think that, like, if self-failed version, because my other, like, babbles, when it doesn't have babbles, it's saying no interfaces have babbles. Actually, hang on a second. I have some bad logic here. It's actually, no, if it does not equal, so that is working. I don't, where do you see that line, Neil? In Babels, I say self-failed interfaces equals, oh, at the top. Haha, okay, I'm sorry, thank you, Neil. That's what I missed, so that's what I need. I see I have failed interfaces here. Bad copy paste. Thank you, my friend, thank you so much. Right there, right there. Haha, okay, let's try it now. Thank you. No, good catch. Bad copy paste. Are you serious? Did I really get that version check to work? Everything else has been copy paste with for loops. This is my first test without a dictionary. So version, and the other thing is, maybe you can help me, Neil, maybe you can figure this out. I don't know why for this test it shows version check, the name of the class, but my subsequent test says switch, the name of the host name, instead of my class of interface errors check. I couldn't figure that out. I have not been able to figure out why this test uses the class name, whereas this class uses just the host name of the device. It may be buried in here somewhere, but I have yet to be able to figure out why that does that. So now let's make the version test fail, and let's go back into our adaptive card. So what am I passing into this adaptive card for version? I'm passing in the version, see, failed interfaces, that's not right. It should just be version. No, it should be, I guess it's name. Let's see what name does. And let's make the version fail by changing our golden image to, let's say they're running version 8.0. I don't know, just as an arbitrary number. Commit that in, dummy bad NXOS version. Thanks again, Neil. I really thank you. Thank you. I would have figured that out eventually had I pulled back and looked at the copy-paste. Bad copy pasta, as I like to say it. Hey, Michael. Hey, thanks for joining. We're having some fun here. If you just joined, we've enabled WebEx connectivity with these PyETS tests. And if you haven't seen me run the test yet, then let me just double check the adaptive card. And I need to look at the show version. So has detected a failure because the version is that, and then has a failure because let me change that to the NXOS version is the NXOS do I just say failure? Hang on. Yeah, see, that's not going to work. So interface shouldn't be interface. We're going to say version. Version equals name. That should work. Actually, let's not make it name. Let's make it obvious. No, it is version. Okay. So is version, because the NOx version is version. Thanks for joining me, everybody. We've already had some help from the community. Neil's helped me out. Yeah, I love my chat ops. I really like this. So this is an adaptive card Jinja template. So what we're going to hear is say version, and this is going to be version. So this is the format, the JSON structure, and this comes from the show version command. And then this link is actually show version, and then link to this YouTube. All right, let's give this a go. Now that I have made it so a couple things should happen here. And Michael, just so you know, any PyETS job, you can add in --WebEx space and your space, --WebEx token and your key, and it will send the summary of your PyETS job to that WebEx room. The other thing that I want to highlight is that there's no testbed file. I am pulling JSON from GitHub, so I'm using the GitHub Python library to get the contents, the JSON contents, parsing it for show version, and that is what I'm running my tests against. That's why it seems so lightning fast, is because I'm actually not SSHing to the device, parsing show version, getting the JSON back over SSH. I'm doing a pull from GitHub over HTTPS. So that's why, like, when I press enter, I could actually put the time command in front of this. It is lightning fast. And it's running, like, all kinds of tests here. Okay, so it did fail the version test. Let's take a look at what this looks like here. And I'll show you something else I haven't explored yet on this chat. So it's done. All of these tests are done in that little bit of time. And as you can see, okay, so I have it looks like I'm running a for loop here by accident. 8.0.8. So that's not good. It is failing. So my past works, but my failure, it looks like I'm running a loop where I shouldn't be running a loop. So we'll have to take a look at that. But let's take a look at the WebEx. Yeah, you see I'm running a loop here, .8. But version is 8. Should be 8.0 here, but I'm running a loop in there somewhere by accident. So here's the WebEx adaptive cards, which look great once I fix that for loop wherever I'm running a for loop. So the thing is with interfaces, everything is a list or an array, whereas with show version, it's a dictionary. And I'll show you what I mean here real quick. If I go to the output, you see how this is just straight dictionary, whereas if I go to interfaces, it's an array of you know what I mean? So the code is slightly different here, and technically it should be easier. Where's this for loop? So really it's on the failure. So if it failed, run self failed version. I think it's this loop dot mark. So can I just say aetest dot mark without the loop? I don't know. I don't know enough about aetest. I'm going to need to look into that. If maybe I can just remove loop and get lucky. Let's try it. And actually, let me put the time command in front of this and give you a sense on how long all these tests are taking. So that's 24 tests against 64 or more interfaces, and now also a test against the NXOS version key. And I should know pretty quick here. No, it doesn't have mark. PyAtest has no attribute mark. Can I say like 0 on the 0 element? I don't know. That's kind of hacky, but I don't know if that's going to work or not. I'm going to have to look into the aetest documentation if that doesn't work. Yeah, 0 is not iterable, not subscribable. I don't want a loop. Maybe I just say aetest. I think that's actually the way to do it. If not, I'll need to dig into the example code and see if there's an example. Module is not callable. Let's just see here. It's not really what I'm doing. I might have to do some offline homework for this, because again, I'm not looping over. I don't need the aetest loop. Do I just assert it? don't think that's right either. If the failed test, maybe I don't even need AE test. I would like to make it a test though. I've kind of painted myself in a corner here by not doing something against a list. Is it just test? Thank you, Gordimer, if I'm saying that right. Excuse me if I'm not. Let's try that. Let's just try test, which would be, you know, the obvious thing is to test it instead of looping over it. No, see, okay, so unexpected keyword name. It actually looks like test case, doesn't it? Not test. I don't want looping. AE test case, and that's what I have. It is a test case. And then I have my function. test, AE test, test case, okay. I don't want to loop though. Is it just subsection? No. So it's not steps. So really, I'm going to go back to the broken state. I need an alternative to looping over this for an AE test. Has anybody else done this before? AE test version. Ha. AE test. Am I just overthinking this? If there's a failed test, just call. Can I pass version in like that? I think that's all I'm doing is just overthinking this. I don't need the loop. And I don't know that these functions, if this will work. I might need to adjust these functions. I'm just overthinking it. I just don't need to invoke the looping mechanism. I just need to call those other functions. Sorry, I got a little off track. Okay, so that's all that dead air and silence, right? So it did fail and its switch failed. No errors. All right, big round of applause. It finally clicked in my head. I was overthinking things. I don't need to invoke anything. I just don't need to call the looping mechanism of AE test. Okay, so let's take a look at our WebEx and see what we got here from our tests. So we got babbles twice. It's because I'm calling the wrong template, it looks like. Yeah, John. All right, so hang on. No, failed version. It's because I'm calling the wrong NXOS version WebEx, failed version adaptive card. Now that is puzzling why I'm getting the wrong adaptive card. I'm calling failed NXOS web version, failed NXOS web version. I'm calling the right template. version equals name, test equals NXOS, and I have if test equals NXOS. Maybe I just hadn't, let me try that again. I'm not sure why I'm getting the wrong adaptive card. Thanks for the applause, Godimer. Yeah, I was really overthinking that. And I'm still not exactly sure why I'm getting the wrong WebEx cards. Okay, so I'm only getting 2 adaptive cards now instead of 3. So I'm going to have to kill this and see if I'm getting a 404. I could be maybe sending an incorrect payload in from my template. So the WebEx says it passed, meaning it tried to send it, but that doesn't mean I'm getting let's cancel this job and see if I'm getting a 404 back. Version matches golden version. No, it's because my logic is wrong. If name is not none. So this is calling it, but it's not passing name in as version. Right, because name is none. It's printing this version matches golden version, which is not correct. Now on my babbles, I'm saying if self failed interfaces, if set failed, name equals the keys. In this case, I don't want the keys, I just want the version. Am I not doing that right? Should be that version right there. Try that again using the self-failed NXOS version. No, that didn't work either. Skipped version matches. So I'm hitting this skipped here if name is none. But am I not passing in name here? Should this be self? Self? I don't think so. Again, I'm not a super proficient Python programmer quite yet. Yeah, I got multiple arguments. Okay, so got multiple arguments from name. I don't know why name is not being overridden by name version here. Because I'm hitting this skipped because it thinks name is none. What if I get rid of the name equals none? Yeah, you see now name is not. And it should never get in. Yeah, that might be better logic anyway. I don't really need the skipped because I've already established that it's failed. Hang on, something was not defined there. An unexpected keyword name. Oh, let me get rid of that. Still not sure why it didn't override name, but let me just try it this way. Because technically I've already checked, so I don't need the skipped. I might even be able to clean up my other adaptive card logic. I technically don't need this skipped here. And I technically don't need to pass, well, I do need to pass name in for the interface name. That's why I'm doing it that way. All right. See, but now I'm not. Okay, so right, the failed reason is version is 8. And that's up here though. That's this message right here. So this version check is working. Oh, John, geez. Maybe this should be version here instead of name. And then if version is none. My mistake, my mistake. Still getting an out of bounds here. Oh, I missed it. I missed it here in the table. Self-doubt version. Let's try this again. This might work. This attempt may work. Yeah, there we go. All right, sorted out. No, let's send it one more time. I think this was from me canceling the code, but this looks like it's correct. All right, another big round of applause. But let's try this one more time with a fresh run to make sure. And again, right, we can see that version check failed, NSOX version check failed, but it passed sending it to WebEx. So let's run it one more time and check the WebEx room live. We should get 3 adaptive cards now. One with the version check saying it's running version 8. There it is. One with the Babel check. There it is with Babel's 5, and then one with the interface down check. All right. Okay, so that took a little bit of work because the version is not a for loop. Now, just on the point of version, and we'll wrap things up with just one last test that won't take very long. We're going to copy this whole thing. Yeah, Neil, we got the version check working out. So what we're going to do is add one more test here. And actually, this should be test for NXOS version. We're going to copy the whole thing and just add a boot test for Kickstart version. So then we're going to call this, and I'm just going to find it and replace it with Kickstart. Kickstart version, Kickstart version, Kickstart version, and let me get the actual string of the key. Is Kickstart version string. Kickstart version, Kickstart version, Kickstart, Kickstart, Kickstart. The Kickstart version, and let's make that say the NXOS version, NXOS version, NXOS version, NXOS version. Kickstart version, NXOS, 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 the Kickstart version, NXOS, test equals NXOS. Okay, so now should be the same thing except, yeah. Okay, so let me save that and go into my adaptive card and take the whole thing, put it after the else, add an end if, and let's just quickly adjust the adaptive card to say Kickstart version, Kickstart version, Kickstart version. And let's adjust that up here too to say NXOS version. All right, now this one's going to pass, ideally, because it does match. And we won't get a WebEx adaptive card, but we've added another test against the show version information. Or maybe I'm wrong. I thought I saw some red code in there. We'll have to see what the logs say. So, failed NXOS version check failed. Kickstart version check failed. Let's run the logs. Unless there's something. Okay, so Kickstart version passed, but the Kickstart version failed. I don't quite understand. Passed. So then why did it invoke? Did I break something in the logic? Let me set this. Let me set them both to pass in theory. But something is broken in my logic because it should not have invoked the check. There's my threshold. self.version is not equal to the threshold, then fail it and set failed NXOS version. What did I do for kickstart? Did I not do the same thing? Kickstart threshold. If self.version does not equal kickstart version, fail it and run that. I don't know. I think there's still something wrong with my logic in here. Let me try it with, well, actually, hang on. I have to push that up to GitHub. Let me push this up, and in theory, everything should pass on show version. Pass test. I don't quite know why it's going into that other logic. It is good progress, but see, it's passing. It's passing the test. It's saying passed reason, NXOS version matches. It should skip this. So I have broken something because I thought that was working initially. So it's definitely running the pass here. Self.version is not none. I know what I've done here. So let me change. It's like I need to set this as a self, the threshold version, or make it hard-coded in there. I guess I could do that and say if self.version does not equal that string, skip it, right. No, I think when I removed that, so I do need that for sure. But I'm running this self fail. I removed the self skip, it looks like. That's what I've done. I should have a, under the check, I should have a skip. Somehow that got nuked during my messing around here. And I should say if self.version does not equal the threshold, else and then if failed, so I don't, now I need to do that same code here. Yeah, I know. I don't know why I did that. And this shouldn't say no interface babbles. It should say version matches golden version. All right, let's version matches golden version. Let's see if that's better. Now everything should pass on the version checks this time around. I don't know how I ended up removing that. No, still going into that logic for some reason. Failed reason. This should be skipping because it does match. If failed kickstart version equals self.version. If that's defined, then call the check and then call the WebEx. So under the check, self.version does not equal is my logic wrong here, right? It should say if it equals if it equals that, skip it, else. Jeez. Okay. Anyway, like I was saying earlier on an earlier stream, being able to figure out quickly why things aren't working, and it's working. And it's working. Being able to figure out quickly, okay, why is this broken? It's got to be this if statement. It's because I said not equals or equals. That's just as important in development as getting things right on your first try. So now I should have still not quite there because I'm getting 2 WebEx messages where I should only be getting, or 3 WebEx messages instead of 2. But I didn't get a kickstart. Is it because I didn't change? It's because I didn't change this or this. Let's try it one more time and let's watch the WebEx room. So I shouldn't get any version WebEx cards here. Yeah, I don't think anyone gets it right on their first try. This isn't professional sports, right? We're developing, and that's why it's called developing. We're growing and evolving and developing wings or developing more abilities at code. So now, 2 of them. So let's go ahead and fudge it, and this will wrap things up for me tonight. Let's fudge these numbers and make the kickstart version, let's just make them down a version, 7 dot whatever 2. And the kickstart, where's my kickstart field? 2. So we're going to save that, commit that in and say dummy bad version. So don't beat yourself up, right? The point is to try and just to learn and to grow. And failure, if you can't deal with failure, development might not be for you, honestly. Writing code just might not be for you if you really struggle with personal failure or you beat yourself up or you're too hard on yourself. You're going to have to find a way to square that circle that you're going to make mistakes. But in making mistakes, learning, because I put not equals instead of equals equals or whatever the thing was that we got wrong, that's just as important. So now I should have, 2 adaptive cards, one that says the NXOS version is wrong, one that says okay, so where's my kickstart? Not quite there yet. I'm missing my kickstart, which is probably a copy-paste mistake somewhere. Kickstart. And actually, let me just update this table to say NXOS version and kickstart version. So I didn't kick off my WebEx here. Or I got a 404. Did it try to send the WebEx? Let's take a look here. Right, so it did fail that, but it passed the WebEx. Could be the Jinja 2 template. And it is the Jinja 2 template. It's because I didn't update this to say Kickstart. Right? So hopefully you're following my failures and my logic as I fail. Right? That was pretty quick for me to figure out what failed there. It was because I didn't adjust my if statement, bad copy pasta. So now, right, to wrap things up on a success, which I always like to try to do if it doesn't cost me too much time, is to end on a successful note. There's my NXOS version, there's my Kickstart version, and then I'll get my Babels and my interface, all in just a few seconds. So Neil, Michael, Gudemer, everybody who joined, Stephen, thanks for your help. Neil, really thank you for pointing me in the right direction a few times. Gudemer, that dir print helped me out quite a bit too. As you can see, just in an hour and a half of development, we have tied in our WebEx with adaptive cards that respond to the failed PyATS results. So now, like if I had my phone, I wish I had my phone on me, I get these messages on my phone. This is like alerting. So we're capturing the state, send it off the box, send it to GitHub. Pull that down and test it. If there's failures, make a table and say it's failed, and send it to WebEx and alert somebody that there's failures. Thanks again. Stay safe, everybody. I'll be doing more streaming throughout the week, and I'll be announcing it on my Twitter once I do stream. We'll see you real soon. This was a lot of fun tonight. Thanks again for joining.